Welcome to SLCTLS Summer 2020 Online during the COVID-19 pandemic. This is Kathy Bauman, Director of the University of Chicago Language Center, reporting on year 4 of our Mellon Transforming Language Instruction project. I'm really happy to be able to share this with you, and hoping all this technology works, as I'm a little bit of a novice. It's been a successful year. We've really refined what we call our Chicago Mellon method. We've been reporting on this to you for a few years now, and many of you watching this review might be participants. Our method or our process works this way. First, assessment literacy through participation in an OPI workshop. We were able to hold that online this summer, and I'll say a few more words about that in a few minutes. Secondly, participating in a test design and development workshop. That's a workshop we designed to help our participants identify proficiency outcomes for end of sequence, end of first year, end of second year, could be end of third year, and then design a test that measures those outcomes, proficiency test. We're very hands-on in that test design and development, working really closely with our participants to design a valid test. Next, student participants complete the development of the assessments, working with us. Then they attend a curricular development workshop. The curriculum development workshops are more hands-off. We turn over the expertise to our participants as being experts in their language, but guide them and support them to realign their curriculum so that their learners can be successful in those end of sequence 4-skill proficiency assessments that they have designed themselves. Then they engage in curricular alignment. The projects range from aligning one skill through an entire year to creating an entirely new course, 4 skills. Most of our participants are working in pairs or groups, collaborating with each other. And then they will be teaching their new materials and using their new assessments. And at this point, looking ahead, the next phase of our project will be evaluation. So teaching our participants how to engage in curricular evaluation. In other words, have the changes you've made to your curriculum resulted in better, more consistent performance by your learners with your 4 skills assessments. On the other hand, do those assessments need to be tweaked? The levels need to be raised or lowered? Are the test items and testing prompts working well? So year 5 will have an emphasis on evaluation. Now I'm trying to move to the next slide. Another big change we made this year was expanding our idea of partners to be able to include cohorts of experts. We got sort of blessing, permission from the Mellon Foundation to be able to make this change. This project started out with an emphasis on sharing students. We quickly turned to the professional development and the testing and course alignment that would be necessary in order to share students. But we found that it's a very tricky operation to share students along the same lines as the course share initiative in the Big Ten or other course sharing undertaken, for example, by our colleagues at Columbia, Yale, and Cornell. But we have found that the collaborative professional development and collaborative course realignment and assessment that our partners engaged in was tremendously beneficial, resulting in true transformation of teaching. And furthermore, these steps in the collaboration that I've just mentioned that our also listed here, would be necessary to effectively share students. In other words, if I'm going to receive students from another institution or share students with another institution, we need to have similar or comparable end of sequence outcomes. We need to be testing those end of sequence outcomes, and we need to be realigning our curricula together, ideally, in order to ensure that all of our learners, our shared learners, reach those outcomes. Because of a similar project underway on our campus here at the University of Chicago, going beyond LICTLs into all instructors of all languages, we know that there's a lot of effective and really impactful collaboration that can happen when groups of instructors across languages work together. So now we are inviting, and in fact did invite, similar groups, small groups, into our summer 2020 workshops. We call these groups cohorts of experts. They really align along the idea of communities of experts, or learning communities. These experts work in similar ways to our partners. They collaborate on setting end-of-year proficiency levels. So for example, if I'm a teacher of Turkish on my campus, working with an instructor teaching another LICTL, let's just say for example's sake, Bangla, it may be useful for us to talk together about end of sequence proficiency outcomes, to bounce ideas off of each other, to deepen the conversation about how, oh, you think your students can reach the intermediate low level at the end of 1 year? Maybe my students can do the same. Then similarly to our partners, they may work together on developing and using their end of sequence 4 skills proficiency assessments. If we're both designing an end of sequence assessment targeting intermediate low, we may be able to use similar tasks, test tasks, or similar prompts. It may be sort of a cross-pollination of ideas there. Similarly, those instructors can collaborate on the development and realignment of curricula and materials, sharing ideas, sharing techniques, sharing resources where materials might be found, including shared online shared educational resources on the model of the Coral site. Also incorporating materials into teaching. We found having our instructors share the ideas that they're using, enrich both sides or multiple languages. And again, we'll be working with our own instructors, and as we'll be working with our Mellon participants in program evaluation. We've already seen some of that happen here at the University of Chicago, where instructors have administered their end of sequence proficiency tests and found that they need an intermediate test. Really, I mean an intermediary test. They aimed their test too high and now perhaps need a test at the end of 2nd year and can use a proficiency test they developed at the end of the 3rd year. This is all helping us think more concretely about what proficiency levels students reach at the end of a year of instruction, instead of assuming those levels, actively testing, assessing those levels, helping to know what levels of proficiency students are entering the next year of instruction with in order to align and perhaps better target instruction. Another change, another expansion we're making also with Mellon's blessing is to expand our targeted institutions. We began this project focusing on the Big Ten Academic Alliance and the Ivy Plus Consortium, knowing that those students in many cases could be readily shared. So this is when our goal was sharing students. Now that our goal is a more is more oriented toward professional development and collaboration, we can bring in additional programs in order to have more impact. In our 2020 summer workshops, we already brought in these additional institutions. This was because of some professional connections among our instructors, also another relationship between a new staff member we brought in here at the University of Chicago, as well as another institution where an external review occurred, and we invited a cohort of LICTL instructors to take part in our workshops. Looking ahead, we would like to target consortia, existing consortia in the US. We would like to bring in consortia of liberal arts schools in the United States, and also look at state systems. There are very dynamic state university systems, not part of the Big Ten, who are doing lots of language instruction, who we feel could benefit from being welcomed to our project. Another way to have a broader impact on student populations. I could also add reaching out to community college associations, and we've had some additional conversations with some of the big summer programs who would like to engage in our professional development, but it's been going on right now exactly during the months when they're teaching. So if we can expand our impact to bring in big groups of instructors in summer programs. When it became evident we would not be able to hold our workshops on our campus this summer, we did embark on holding them online, and we were successful. ACFL gave us permission to pilot a version of their intensive 4-day oral proficiency interview workshop. We held that workshop over 5 mornings. It was successful. We're seeing from not only the feedback from the participants, but there's a natural check and balance there, because as many of you know, during that workshop, participants do a live practice interview. And when the trainer sees that those live practice interviews are at the same quality as when they occur during the 4-day workshop, we can see that the same level of expertise has been shared. We also offered our test design and development workshop to about 20 participants across the entire United States. That was also successful. We, of course, as in the case of the OPI workshop, moved some of those components to asynchronous formats. We tried to shorten the amount of time our participants would need to spend on Zoom. We definitely think that we would rather have those participants here on campus. There's a lot of community building that happens. We did endeavor to do community building online, but there is almost no replacement for the conversations and collaborations that grow out of bringing those LICTL instructors here to work together. In our curriculum development workshop, which we also offered online, also with some asynchronous components, we had over 30 participants in our curriculum development workshop. We had a wonderful sort of testimony that happened spontaneously during that workshop, where I've come to realize we are building communities of experts in these workshops. That's something we would like to do more deliberately, looking ahead, where a couple of our LICTL participants told us that there's never been anything for LICTL instructors like this project and our workshops, and also making it possible for them to collaborate and talk to each other across multiple languages and across multiple institutions. So that underscores the role that that bringing the instructors to our campus plays when we are able to do that. On the other hand, it is sometimes difficult for people to take time and come to Chicago for the workshops, for a 3-day or 4-day workshop. Several of our instructors were taking part in summer teaching and then joining us in afternoons for the test design and development and curriculum development workshops. It was quite a heavy lift for some of those individuals. So we're looking ahead to the summer of 2021 to figure out the most effective way to hold our workshops while still building community and working on our community building. You are all now going to be participating in SLCTLS Online. We'll think too whether this format is a more effective format looking ahead. It certainly makes it easier for many people to participate, to share this information. So like many associations, professional associations across the country, if not the world, we're all now piloting in real time online delivery of our professional meetings. Well, we're all going to be learning from that this summer. Looking ahead, as I noted, in multiple arenas, evaluation will be a focus of the 2021 academic year. We'll be building those workshops and piloting our workshops. We'll also be expanding our participant base. My new colleague, Karen Maxey, who's joining us from Northeastern University as a pedagogy specialist, will be actively reaching out to create new partnerships, but along with new cohorts of experts. Strategic collaboration is the topic of this, or the focus of the SLCTLS workshop in summer 2021. Emily Ubel and I Emily is at Michigan State, as you know. We'll be working together to foster more strategic collaborations. That's we would consider our cohorts of experts and our partnerships strategic collaboration in and of themselves, looking ahead to have broader strategic collaboration across LCTLs to maximize the teaching and learning of LCTLs across institutions, and perhaps beginning to break down the competition that sometimes builds walls that prevent that kind of collaboration. And at the University of Chicago, we'll be drafting our next Mellon grant, looking ahead to the next years that we hopefully will be able to work with the generous support of the Mellon Foundation to do the professional development work we are finding so rewarding, and that we know our participants are also finding rewarding. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll sign off now. Enjoy the rest of your summer as we come into the probably most challenging autumn that we in academia have ever faced.